So there's been a lot of rumors and speculation onto what exactly is going on with Trump's health. And he went to the hospital yesterday. And these were the headlines then. Trump is in, quote, excellent health, White House says, amid questions about second exam. And this is just factual. He went to the hospital. Like, why are you going back again if you say everything is fine? We know that he's got problems with the back of his hand. He's got problems with his ankles. He tweets out crazy stuff all the time. And so then the question is, okay, why are you going to the hospital? The interesting thing was that this is reported in NBC News and also from the official White House, essentially letter, that he got a shot, COVID vaccine and also a flu shot. They're not going to talk about this stuff on Fox News because the way that Trumpers and all the people at the top of the Republican Party, that they've gotten you to hate education, hate the hospitals, hate doctors, hate teachers. And essentially they want to make cuts to you on these kind of things, yet they're going to do these things for themselves. Meaning that, put in the most simplest terms, Trump will tell you, you don't need a healthcare, you don't need a doctor, you don't need a professor, you don't need a teacher, and yet they're going to send their kids to the best schools and hospitals possible. Of course they are, right? And this is why it's so hard to talk about this stuff, because you're dealing with a population that's so easily fooled by Trump. I mean, isn't it obvious? This is the actual letter then from the physician to the president. And then this goes to Karen Levitt, right? The press secretary. And basically they just say right here, he got the influenza shot, annual influenza, and the COVID-19 booster vaccinations. Trump supporters are going to hate this kind of news. That's why they just don't talk about it basically on Fox News, because it's unpopular among them. But it is. This is what happened. He went through a whole bunch of tests. You want to read this whole thing? You can. But basically saying that they're saying Trump's fine. One thing that I thought was interesting at the very end, he says, it's from the doctor, he continues, referring to Trump, he continues to maintain a demanding daily schedule without restriction. And I feel like that kind of language is vague enough to where it can still give them a bit of a smokescreen. If you want to define demanding schedule as, showing up late to work, going home early, golfing on weekends, sitting around eating KFC by your phone while you watch Fox News, I guess that could be a demanding schedule. But it's pretty clear that Trump is in decline, both physically and mentally. They're just, like I said, they're still going to say he's fine, but there's that. And whenever we talk about any of these kind of issues, guys, I just tell you the truth and my honest opinion on this stuff. If you're going to mention Trump and his age and his health, you can certainly mention Biden and his age and his health. It's fine. I said this during the election when it was going on. I thought they were both too old. Just get out of politics and go take care of yourself. Pretty simple evaluation. I don't think that's anything crazy to say. I just saw this recently, I guess. Biden, as it says, undergoes radiation therapy as cancer care enters new phase. So I wish no ill harm on Biden. And regarding cancer, it's something that I talk about so many times on the channel. I wish, say with the Trump people, that they would fund universities, find cures for cancer, right? Find cures for things that are ailing all of us, like putting money into medical research, into education, because these are just basic things, into healthcare. Basic things that we need to be doing. I take this stuff seriously. If you guys don't know, both my mom and my dad passed away from cancer. My mom and my sister actually just recently this last year both passed away from cancer. So it is it's just a reality. I'm highly susceptible to this, or it runs in the family. 3 members of my family. So I actually my wife and I take out extra insurance. Because this, you get diagnosed, it's really, really, really expensive. And so, I hope we can find a cure as soon as possible. I think that'll help so many people. And so I don't know how to say it. That's why it's frustrating for me when, you get this kind of news where, Trump's doing what he needs to do to try to stay healthy, yet they tell all their followers that you don't need said things. So it's really hypocritical in that way. And that's all I have to say about that. It's frustrating because, I hop all over the news. You see now, I guess our CDC is firing people. They're underfunded. But it's not just the CDC. It's like multiple departments now that the government is shut down, and Russ Vought, Trump, and all their, mega people They're like, hey, this is our chance. This is our opportunity. That was in Trump's language, opportunity to fire people, right? So 4,000 workers then got notices on Friday. I'll say this, it could be more for all we know, because letters were just going out, and this is just a couple of days ago, that people started getting essentially, messages that don't come in, basically don't come into work. It's a lot of different departments: Treasury, Health and Human Services, Education, Housing and Urban Development, Commerce, Energy, and Homeland Security. And I'm sure there's more. And when you read through this stuff, you'll see how people's lives are affected for any number of ways. Let's say you need to file some papers with the IRS, some sort of extension or something like that. Well, that might take a long time now, right? There's a lot of turmoil. I think half the people from the IRS are now furloughed. Or say you need processing done with the VA, right? For whatever reason, they need a number of paperwork or procedures, or you need some help with stuff, right? Or if you need help, well, you talk about the airport one, like you want to just fly on time. People may not necessarily show up to work because they're not getting paid. Trump, on the other hand, and this is crazy that this is the state of the USA when our headlines are, Pentagon will pay military troops, Trump says, shifting $8 billion, because there was some question whether or not we're paying people. And, my opinion on this stuff is, if you're focused on paying the troops, pay everyone that deserves to get a paycheck, which is just basic, Doesn't matter, be it the IRS, be it Department of Education, right? Be it Health and Human Services, whatever. If you're doing your job, you should get paid. It's just basic. What do they say here? We have identified funds to do this, and Secretary Hegseth will use them to pay our troops. It's literally what we're talking about here. And then they're going to blame the Democrats, of course. One thing I noticed as well is there's been a lot of anger, and this would be both Democrat and Republican, because people are concerned about the future. And so what it boils down to is it's going to end up being a blame game. Obviously the Republicans will blame the Democrats, and then the Democrats will blame the Republicans. And, for any of these kind of things, it's going to depend on your particular worldview. So I just give you my opinion, but I try to give you guys a full picture of this stuff. They're fighting over, how do we fund the government? Healthcare is a big sticking point in this. And it's crazy because, let me read a little bit about this stuff, is because so many people are affected, and I wish they would just, figure out something to get these system working for everyone. But that's why I mentioned in the beginning, though, say with the Trumpers, they're not really interested. They're more interested in like, how can we get the system working for the billionaire class and then cut off everything else for everyone else, right? That's why this is really important when you see how whether or not Trump will and Fox News will mention the just getting a basic flu shot. If they'll mention that on Fox News, I bet you they don't, because the way they'll try to paint it is like, you're healthy, you don't need to go to the hospital, you're fine, and yet they go, right? Oh, you're smart enough, you don't need any education, you don't need to go to university, you learn everything from watching Fox News and keep watching that, and yet they send their kids right to university, etc. Or another good one is that Fox always tells you all the time how much they hate New York and hate LA and all these liberal cities. Well, then why do you put your offices, Fox News in the big cities? Why do you do that? Like, why don't you have your Fox News offices like in Oklahoma? If you hate New York so much, why move all your offices to Oklahoma? It's a legitimate question. So this is the kind of stuff that where if you have an uneducated audience, and I'm just talking about Fox News, any of that crowd, they're easy to fool. And I always tell you the guys the same thing, right? Look at what people do, not what they say. Look what they do. Look what Trump's doing. What's he doing? He's getting a flu shot, right? Where's Fox? Where did they film from, right? Look at New York City, right? Look at LA, big cities. They're not going to go to Oklahoma. Just the reality. This is for those of you who have to talk to MAGA people, just ask them just like basic questions like that. And then we're in a situation too where, and I mentioned this because it's going to be a small story because this unfortunately happens every day in USA, but I want to bring it up just to show you where we are. Mississippi homecoming turns deadly, 4 killed, 12 injured in downtown Leland shooting. Right, just the culture in USA with Trump and all that crowd is like they get you to love the guns and the Bible and forget about education, etc. And then basically then you all go do this kind of stuff. People get frustrated at the economy. There's any number of reasons why we have these issues, but it is all to say this: you don't have to live like this. among developed countries, USA is by far has way more of this kind of stuff than anywhere else. Just ask any of your, anyone from Europe, Asia, etc. You'll see. You guys already know this stuff, but I'm just mentioning it. And then I was thinking about this too, because we always, ask my opinion on this kind of stuff. What's going on here? Well, I guess we don't have enough workers to work in our farms, and so therefore things are going to cost more money, which is not a big surprise. It's obvious stuff, right? I don't know why. I don't know why we can't just have like regular conversations and talk like real people. Our news cycles, if you want to talk about YouTube channels, etc., are filled with a bunch of people that are just basically actors and propagandists. Is basically what it ends up being. And you'll know if you're watching, that kind of channel, is if they don't really give you a pros and cons kind of thing. They just always advocate for a particular point of view. And they always say, oh, well, a certain group of people are bad and a certain group of people are always good. And it's really obvious when you watch certain channels. So the best way to think about the stuff is like when you watch something, do you feel like you understand everything that's going on? And do you feel inspired to be like, hey, okay, I like to learn, more about said things. That sounds like something that other people aren't talking about. Usually if they're not talking about it on other outlets is because that's the really important stuff. This is an interesting one here. It says, Trump administration says immigration enforcement threatens higher food prices. Of course it does. And this is actually funny because it's like the same pattern that they keep doing. You'll have more of the political people at the top, the cabinet secretaries, et cetera, will tell you everything's fine. And then you got like more of the career federal workers that are like telling you the opposite. So for example, I'll read through this one together. The Trump administration said that its immigration crackdown is hurting farmers and risking higher food prices for Americans by cutting off agriculture's labor supply. Of course, right? It's not hard to see. The Labor Department warned in an obscure document, so like this small little document, I guess, with the Federal Register last week that, quote, the near total cessation of the inflow of illegal aliens is threatening the stability of domestic food production and prices for consumers. Of course, U.S. consumers. Unless the department acts immediately to provide a source of stable and lawful labor, this threat will grow and with increased funding for immigration enforcement. So basically, things are going to go up in cost, guys, and that's where we are. And I keep telling you this thing because I think it's going to get bigger and bigger. That we have this shadow economy related to immigration, and so if these people aren't working, they're not going to be paying rent, they're not going to be paying their bills, and you're start going to have a domino, and then you're going to have higher food costs, etc. So I think this just keeps getting, just keeps getting bigger and bigger how many people are exposed to, say, the tricolor thing. And this is an example of, I promise you, because I know I can see what other outlets are talking about. Not many people bring this stuff up. It's only in the financial news, basically, but it matters. Do not ignore the money stuff. Essentially looking at a pile of bankruptcies that could be mounting up. You also got, this was the First Brand thing. Where's that missing? It's like $2.3 billion. And I think it's all connected to, again, it was what I refer to as the shadow economy. And that would be, revolving around immigration and all the things that connected to that. And then you're going to add on top of the federal workers that are all being laid off under Trump. And we're all going to get affected because we're all connected. If you want to see how deep this problem goes in terms of the worker thing, because a lot of the problems we face in USA is surrounding this, I really recommend the documentary American Factory. You can find it on Netflix. I don't work for Netflix or anything. Just think this is a really good documentary, and it's really an update of the old movie Gung Ho, if you ever saw that, with Michael Keaton. And true story, I actually used to show these things in my class because it's really good to explore like how deeply rooted the U.S. problem is. But it doesn't mean that it's insolvable. It totally is solvable. However, you need to be honest about the challenges that are facing the country and not just pretend like it's, as in Trump's point of view, just look for the scapegoat and blame, the people who don't have any power. That's what it ends up being. Like, I blame black and brown people who are delivery drivers. It's ludicrous. So anyway, that's my thoughts on this stuff. We'll keep track if any other news comes out about Trump's health. I shared my opinion on these things. I don't think he's well. And like I said, I think there's ways that they can sort of hide it through vague language. So that's my thoughts. I'd like to hear yours, and I'll catch you on the next video.